guys, Brooke here with Legal Talk Tuesday. It's been a couple of weeks. We were at a legal tech conference, tech show with the American Bar Association the week before last. And last week, Laura was bringing you some family law info. But today we are going to talk about a very important issue in business. So this is for you business owners out there. We need to talk about business continuity. There's a lot of talk about, how businesses are handling currently staffing and other things with the coronavirus going around. And so there's several different times where your business needs to be protected. And so when I'm talking about business continuity planning, I'm talking about the process that's involved in creating systems and processes to prevent and recover from any potential threats to your business, and also to ensure that your people, your assets, and everything are protected and that they're able to function quickly if there's any unexpected events that occur. So there's kind of two different types of things to address when you're talking about business continuity. So there's a business continuity plan and there's a disaster relief plan. And so they're similar and they're a little bit different. So when you're talking about the business continuity piece of it, we're concerned with keeping your business operations running, whether that's internally on site or whether that's remotely, just by using a different location, tools, technology, processes. Post-disaster, a disaster recovery is really more concerned with, restoring, getting back up to normal business operations just as soon as possible. So when you're talking about disaster recovery, it's not necessarily the business continuity in the interim, but it's getting back into business as usual after you've had to kind of make that transition into your business continuity planning. And so we really want to make sure that our businesses are resilient. By that I mean, you have the ability in your organization to quickly adapt to any disruptions while you're still maintaining, continuity of your business operations. Your people are safe, your, customers, clients, your assets, just, overall protecting your brand. And so there are a few scenarios where planning is needed. One is illness. So by illness, you're wanting to plan ahead. And some of these things you can do just an internal policy and procedure document, an actual business continuity plan. Some of these things you could do in multiple places, including like an operating agreement for your business, just how you're going to handle things. So for instance, illness and death are two of the scenarios where you really need to plan. A lot of times business owners will address that. You need to address that in your operating agreement. What happens if you become ill? Who's going to operate your business? Who's going to serve your clients? What's going to happen? Who's going to handle those affairs? If there is a death, especially, if you're in a partnership too, if there is a death, what does that look like? If there's a divorce, that's something that people don't necessarily think about. Whenever you're getting a divorce, your spouse is entitled to half of the marital property, as are you, and your business can be considered marital property. And so you're going to want to figure out what that looks like. So for instance, a law firm, a non-attorney spouse cannot have an ownership interest. So you have to be an attorney to have an ownership interest in a law firm right now. And so, but that doesn't mean that that spouse wouldn't have any rights to any equity or money in that business. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to that, because in businesses, I know attorneys, you can't, CPAs, you have to be a CPA to be able to have an ownership interest, different professional licensures. You can't just jump in and own a business if you don't also have that licensure. But most of the businesses out there, your spouse not only has a right to your actual, part of your business, but they also could possibly, in the event of death or divorce, hop in and have like an actual share in the business, have a say in the business. And so most of the time, especially if you have business partners, that is not the plan. So you want to make sure that you're covering those things. You also want to plan for natural disasters, whether that's tornadoes, floods. Unfortunately, Nashville was devastated recently with a tornado. And so, those things just happen. You have to be able to adapt and react to those situations for your business. And also kind of what, got me thinking about this being an important topic today is pandemics. So, currently we have the coronavirus outbreak, and, conferences are being shut down. Everybody's kind of jumping in. Laura's actually at the doctor, and she said that there was a sign on the door that said that if you had a fever or traveled, within 30 days or whatever, that you need to go back out to your car and call them instead of sitting in the waiting room. And so, different industries, especially the medical industry, are adapting in different ways, and mostly they have a plan for that, but we also have to plan for that too, even if we're not in the medical industry. So it could definitely impact us, whether that's having to, work remotely, having to serve clients remotely, having to, protect all of our things while we're away from the office, protect our office while we're not there. So that there's different things that you have to consider in all of those different scenarios. So what types of things should you include when you're coming up with your business continuity plan? One, you're going to want to think about your communication. So we communicate with a lot of people outside of our businesses. That's going to be your customers, any vendors, any third parties. You want to make sure that you have some way to communicate and provide good information and support. And so, ongoing in, the instance of some kind of unexpected event. And so if you only answer physical phones in your office, you need some kind of maybe answering service, or you need some kind of way to reroute those calls. You also want to make sure that you're ensuring that whatever services, or if you sell products, that you're able to still provide those to customers, because that can be detrimental to your business if you have a large gap of time where you're not able to actually serve them. You also want to consider kind of an order of priority, like what priorities take precedent whenever you're having a situation like this. What do you need to make sure continues primarily, and shift your focus there, because sometimes, especially if you're not entirely prepared for every event that could occur, because right now I'm really talking about pre-planning, but sometimes when it just pops up, you want to make sure that you're taking care of the things that are, essential first, and then figure out the timing it's going to take to actually restore back to those processes that you're used to. You also need to figure out how to support employees, and I would say not just during an emergency event. I mean, you want them to be able to continue business, but also if they're ill. Sometimes we have sick kids, or we're sick ourselves. I know that before I worked for myself and had a certain allotted number of days, if my kids were sick, of course, that's when I would use my days. But if I was sick, I would fight through it. And we don't want, people coming to work sick. And so, definitely I encourage you, if it's possible in the position at your, business, for the person to have, the option to work remote, I just highly encourage you to consider that, if nothing else, in situations like this. So you're also going to want to consider what technology that you're going to need in place to actually support your business in case there is some kind of disaster or unplanned event where you have to be out of the office. Some kind of recovery solution. It doesn't have to be something permanent, but maybe something temporary that works well. And these can be simple as, making sure if you have a bunch of, customer files, that you actually have them stored electronically, either in a cloud, or if you have some way to access your computer remotely. So if, you have people at home working and you want to be able to collaborate, maybe you can go to logmein.com and be able to remotely access your desktop at work. So, there's a lot of tools available out there for you to be able to do those things, but consider that as well. And you also want to consider kind of some workarounds, like when your technology isn't available, sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes you can't access technology, especially in the event of a disaster. So what does that look like? What's your protocol? What's your process? So you want to put a plan in place for that. You also want to know where and how you're going to relocate your people, and how you're going to kind of redesign your processes in the event that your actual physical location is impacted or not available. Again, do you have a second site? Is everything in the cloud? What does that look like? So you want to be thinking about that. And you also want to think about what people you need to bring in, what teams, what organizations, what things are going to be necessary, to manage your business and keep it going, when those events occur. Also, you want to think about the processes that you actually depend on. So, really know your processes, know the purpose of each process, know, what essential personnel is dedicated to that process, and what they actually rely on to be able to do their work. And so you're going to want to think about how you can support them in continuing that on, because especially if they're an essential component to your organization, you're going to want to make sure that, you know, that person has all the tools at their disposal in the event of an emergency, to be able to work remotely and continue business. So make sure that even if you're passing things along, which I encourage you to delegate, that you know how things operate, you know their needs, and know how to continue those on in these circumstances. Also, you know, test your stuff. So you want to, you know, regularly implement some of these things that you are hoping to include in your business continuity planning, to make sure that it actually is going to do what you need it to do in that situation. You don't want to, you know, make assumptions and then test it for the first time when a real emergency happens. So make sure you're testing it, and assure that, you know, all of your key personnel, whether it's just you by yourself or if you have a staff of people, make sure that you have, you know, adequate personnel to attend to all the things that you need to attend to, whether that's internally or externally, coordinating with other people in the case that some of these things happen. And lastly, you know, just make sure that you're documenting these things. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a formal thing. A lot of these things I encourage you to implement into your operating agreement. If you don't have one, I highly encourage you to get one. But you can just write down your processes and your continuity plan yourself. Just write that down, document all the steps, all the actions needed during those events to be able to continue on business and to function until you can resume business as usual. Thanks for joining me today. Next week, we are going to be back here at 11:30 Central Time, and Laura will be joining me, and we're going to be talking about estate planning. So stay tuned. Thank you guys, and hope you have a great week.